Hey, it's me, I'm back. And yeah, I've been pretty quiet on the channel the last few weeks. As I shared, I was hoping to do a video on insomnia, but I've got a different update today and it's a little dicey, but I'll share it anyway. And I just worked all day and my hair's doing its thing and I'm doing laundry, so continuing to keep it real. So last fall, just to set up where this is going, this is microscopic colitis, but now we're going a different direction. Last fall, I did a microbiome panel with my registered dietitian. And the idea behind that is, as you know, the microbiome, all the amazing bacteria and great stuff in the gut, and in my case, not great stuff. It was a really instructive thing just to see. And again, these tests are not diagnostic for the microbiome. It just lets you get a snapshot of what's happening. One of the things that we saw in that, and I didn't see, it's a 30-page report, I needed help interpreting it, was just some signs around the liver and the gallbladder. So this has been a thought of my RDN for some time now, that something was not just happening with the intestines, but something was happening with the gallbladder or the liver or something in that system, the bile. Continued to get some tests. Nothing came back with a big flashing sign. And then my registered dietitian had talked about getting some tests to check liver function. It had been a while since I'd had a blood panel. So it's a CBC CMP. So like basically a comprehensive blood panel. So this is the weirdness I've talked about before, not weirdness, but the RDN might use tests that my MDs, they don't recognize, to be honest. They're just much more experimental. I think that's fine, but that means I have to interpret them differently. For example, I just took a parasite test to make sure that I didn't have a parasitic infection. If you've been through this before, you know that catching parasites is actually really hard. I always think parasites this is disgusting, but like feet of worms in the body. That's not how most parasites are. They're also very hard to detect as they go through their own lifestyle. Long story short, no, I do not have a parasitic infection. Everything came back within normal ranges, so that was really great. Where was I going with this? Yes, taking all these extra tests that I told you about. So because these tests are a little bit more experimental, they're not what most MDs would use. That's a whole nother discussion, but I've talked about sometimes they feel it's hard because I'm translating between my RDN and my physicians. So what I've agreed to with my dietitian is, look, if there are any things that you want me to get tested, I'll work with my GP to see if she'll order it and the insurance will cover it. So I've been able to every 3 to 4 months do a general blood panel. It also helped because coming off the steroids and my body changed a lot and we're trying to understand what had happened. So there were some good things, the blood, some of the cholesterol, some of the fats, they had come down to a better level. They were really elevated when I was on the steroids, not surprisingly. But the thing that it's called A1, alpha 1, was the thing that my RDN wanted to test because she still has this philosophy something's going on with the liver. And these are liver enzymes. So when the liver is doing well, even a healthy liver, you're going to get some of this enzyme that's going to be released into the blood. Unfortunately for me, my liver enzymes, 2 of the key liver enzymes are very high. And I'm looking because I have my little test results. Here it's the AST and the ALT. And these are as I understand it, because I'm learning a lot about the liver, these are tests that are measuring these enzymes, and if they're high, then it's sending out a sign that the liver is in distress. Liver, football-sized organ, middle of the abdomen, does so much work filtering the blood. It's incredible. It's incredible. We want a healthy liver. Mine is not healthy. Mine is not great. So for example, just one of the values, it's not like I needed to go to the emergency room bad, but like one of the ranges, and this is from a medical test, it's like between 9 and 52 is the normal, and I'm at 179. Not even close. It was really, really high. So what that's not, it's not a diagnosis, but it's telling us like your liver is struggling. The other thing is that the liver antibodies are up, 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 up. And this is bad. So I went and took, so initial test was just the A1, sorry, not the A1, but the liver enzymes. Took the test with my GP, sent it to my gastroenterologist, and his response was, whoa, we need to do more tests. So I went and did another blood test. Oh my word. If you know me at all, you know I don't like needles. I'm getting a lot better. So I went to the lab attached to my gastroenterologist's office. Very nice lady. She could not get a vein. I think I have very nice veins. So I'm laying down, I'm sweating profusely, like it's the vasovagal response, where the body's saying danger, danger, and it's taking all of the blood to the head and the vital organs. So you get super clammy. If this has ever happened to you when you get a blood draw, it's a natural response. Lie down. So what she ended up doing is calling an infusion nurse, and so this is someone who's an expert, obviously, in this. This particular infusion nurse worked at this is perspective creating. She works at the cancer infusion center that's up a level. She was super sweet. When the other nurse had left the room, she was like, "You've got beautiful veins." I was like, "Thank you." I know. Took the blood, came back not good. So the second test confirmed the first one, and that's where I got the actin antibodies, so the IgGs and the IgAs. The one of them is really, really close, just slightly elevated, but the IgG is a very strong positive. So the range was like 0 to 20, and I was at 65. Not good. So I was home by myself that day. My husband had gone to work. I was working from home. And then I started down this spiral. Okay, so what does this mean? What am I most likely to have? And then I got researching things like live liver transplants. Because did you know this? The liver is a little bit like a starfish. You can take a piece of a liver from a healthy donor, a living donor, and transplant it into another donor. So my husband came home and I said, "Would you give me part of your liver?" And he said, "What the hell have you been reading?" I'm way ahead of myself. But it's a little bit scary. And in some ways, it really has brought the attention of my gastro and my general practitioner, because I knew I wasn't feeling totally well with all of the treatment. Not surprisingly, some of the symptoms for the liver overlap with symptoms of the intestines. Some of the things are exactly the same. I do not yet have a diagnosis, and I'll talk about what we'll do to get that diagnosis, but this points towards a couple of things. One thing I could point to is the liver can get really overtaxed by medications. So things like Tylenol are known to cause, persistent Tylenol use can cause liver damage. FYI, if you didn't know that. I'm taking 2 medications that do impact the liver. One is a mesalamine, which is for microscopic colitis. The other one is I have a birth control implant in my arm. For some women, that does have increased risk of liver damage. The challenge with the liver is that for most people, you don't feel physical pain when it's inflamed. So you can be pretty far down the road before you realize there's damage. I've had an implant, a birth control implant, for 5 years now, and I've never had a problem. The other thing to know with the liver, especially the 2 main hypotheses they have, is that it can be impacted when other things in the body are impacted. So let me talk about the 2 working theories they have of what's going on with my liver if it's not just I'm taking too much medication and supplements. The first one really freaked me out when I heard it because I didn't fully understand it, and that is autoimmune hepatitis. So when you hear hepatitis, your mind might go exactly what I think, which is I am not an intravenous drug user. That was my first thought of hepatitis, is these are people who are using drugs. It's also can be a foodborne infection. It can be through sexual contact. None of these make sense to me. I also got vaccinated for hepatitis A and B, I believe, or it's B and C, whichever you can be vaccinated for. I went through that series a while ago before I started traveling to non-European countries in the world. So I was really confused because I thought, how could I have gotten that? And I know vaccines aren't perfect, but it didn't make any sense. Hepatitis, though, when you break it down, itis is inflammation again, and hep is the liver. So it's inflammation of the liver. And autoimmune hepatitis, what that means is that the liver is attacking itself, or your body's attacking the liver. My clothes are dry. It's such a happy dryer. Even when I'm sad, I hear it sing its song and I'm happy. Autoimmune hepatitis. So for autoimmune hepatitis, there's nothing that you do or have done. It's an autoimmune disorder. And that's, as I know now, we don't know a lot about autoimmune disorders. Things like autoimmune hepatitis also tend to happen in people who already have an autoimmune disorder, like microscopic colitis. So it is possible that going through what I've gone through, this is a secondary problem that because my immune system is already on hyperdrive, that it's not really sure and it's damaging my liver. It freaks me out to say damaging my liver because it's a critical organ, and unlike kidney dialysis or other things, there's no such thing for the liver. So that's when I get freaked. But we don't know that that's what's going on. Autoimmune hepatitis. If so, the numbers would be on the low end for autoimmune hepatitis. So there's that. Second working theory, also autoimmune, is celiac disease. And this one, celiac disease, I dismissed it out of hand for a couple of reasons. One, I've been gluten-free for 6 months, almost 7 months. So last fall, I stopped eating gluten. There was a noodle accident in there at some point, but I've been gluten-free. Haven't slipped on it, really and truly eating gluten-free. It's fine. I feel fine. But if it was celiac, in theory, I would feel better by now. So if you think about celiac, that's primarily in the small intestine. So you have the little villi, which are the little fingers. And instead of having healthy, tall villi, think about short, little, stubby villi. That's what happens with celiac disease. Again, autoimmune response. I've been tested for celiac more than once. I have not tested positive. And when I say positive, there's not a diagnosis that says you're celiac, but there are different tests, and I've taken them, and I've not yet tested positive for celiac. These recent antibody tests could point towards celiac. Then I went on 23andMe, and you might not know this, but there's a strong genetic predisposition to celiac disease. A lot of people of European pale descent, I think it's 3 in 100 carry the right genes. And lucky for me, I don't have one copy of these genetic mutations. I have 2 copies of these genetic mutations. So that doesn't mean you develop celiac. It means you're more likely to develop celiac. And guess what? Celiac is more likely to develop in people who have another autoimmune disorder, like microscopic colitis. So what's confusing to me is if I'm showing and testing, these markers would suggest I'm actively consuming gluten, which I'm not. My RDN thinks there could be cross-contamination. I can't imagine I'm testing this high. Yes, I share a house with a gluten-eating person, but I'm not like licking the pizza dough bowl. I really want to. Bread, pizza dough, haven't found a good alternative. So it's confusing that it would test that high even though I'm not consuming any gluten. In some ways, that's easier. It's a known thing. I've been without gluten for 6 months. It's fine. It takes a little more planning. We just took a couple days to go somewhere else for the weekend and was able to find food. It was fine. It was tasty. Yeah. I'm already lactose free, so gluten free, not going to be that hard. If I end up being a celiac, then that's fine. And again, there's a range of people who are celiac. Some people have very severe versions of the disease. Obviously, or so far mine doesn't, if I have it, it doesn't seem to be. I also ate gluten for 37 and a half years of my life. More than that, 38 years of my life, almost 38 years of my life. So to me, it just seems weird. In some ways, I would prefer it celiac disease. There's no cure for celiac disease. You just don't eat gluten. So that, I can do that. The autoimmune hepatitis and some of those things are more serious. And yeah, I don't know. So why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because if it weren't for a hunch from my RDN and it weren't for the test results that came back positive, we wouldn't know this. So what happens next? The next thing I'm going to do is I've got an appointment with my Dr. B, my gastroenterologist. A lot of people might know that gastroenterology and hepatology overlap. So technically, gastroenterologists can do things related to the liver, hepatology. There are some specialists that only specialize in the liver and the gallbladder and the bile ducts and stuff like that. Don't know that we're there yet. I'm repeating these tests and taking some additional tests for celiac, another blood draw, the same office with the lady who pincushioned my arms. So I've got that. And then in a couple of weeks, I have my gastroenterologist again, and we'll look at the results. If it's pointing us in one of these directions, it's still not a diagnosis. So for what will probably happen, and this freaks me out if you know me, we'll be doing a liver biopsy. That is exactly what it sounds like. It is numbing you and sticking a needle and taking tissue out of your liver. I was joking to my husband. He's like, "Oh yeah, they numb it," and I was like, "They're gonna have to numb me, like all of me." Um, and then if they think it's celiac, then the only way you can truly diagnose celiac is biopsy the small intestine, and I believe that's endoscopy. So that is like sticking a tube down the throat. That I don't get to be awake for. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to find out. And I have no control over the situation. And that's really hard. I did stop taking all of my supplements to give the liver a break. So I'm just taking my medication, no supplements at this point. Yeah, so that's what's happening here. Is it microscopic colitis? Is it IBS? Is it also something related to my liver? When does this end? I'm trying to stay positive about it. I did have a moment last week after I got the results where I just like sat down and had a cry because I thought we had our arms wrapped around this, but we don't. So I felt, oh my goodness, here we go again. I thought we knew what this was and we don't. On the other hand, I'm very thankful because whether or not something's happening with the liver, we can rule it out. If it's not, that would be great. But I don't know. I want to know. I want to understand. I know for some people it feels very scary to understand what's going on. But for all of these things, the earlier we can catch and treat them, the better. It's very unlikely for something like liver cancer. Liver cancer is very rare. It happens generally in much older people. And a lot of my immune system markers would not suggest something like that. But we need to know because these things are treatable and relatively young. And I feel like I just want to take it head on. I also realized as I was going back to the hospital for those tests, I was like, oh, I can do this. And it might not sound a lot to you if you've never had any medical thing, or I don't know, maybe you've had a baby and you thought, oh, I never could do that, and you can do it. But you can do it. You adjust. You can do all of these weird lab tests. You can sort through all of the data. You can put yourself up for procedures that are not comfortable. You can do it. You'll learn how to do it. Things that would have grossed me out, especially microscopic colitis, things that grossed me out a year ago, like, I've normalized to it. So all to say, wherever you are in your journey, you can do it. You absolutely can. You'll figure it out. If me, freaked out as I am by all things medical, if I can do it, you can do it. So yeah, that's where I am. Liver, don't know what's going on, but we have a direction. So that's it for me, sending you and your liver a hug today.